There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize something is wrong. Not loud, not dramatic, just a whisper inside you. A truth you felt but didn't say. And it stays there, unspoken, uncomfortable, heavy. Let me ask you something. How many times have you stayed silent, not because you didn't know the truth, but because you were afraid of what it would cost you to speak it? Afraid of rejection, afraid of conflict, afraid of losing someone or something you thought you needed. So you chose silence, and in that moment it felt easier, safer. But what you didn't realize is that silence has a price, and that price is you. Because every time you silence your truth, you don't just avoid discomfort, you abandon your voice, you abandon your power, you abandon yourself. And slowly, piece by piece, you begin to disappear. Not physically, but internally. Your confidence weakens, your clarity fades, your identity becomes negotiable. You start adjusting, filtering, shrinking, just to fit into spaces that were never designed to hold your truth. But here's what nobody tells you. The pain of speaking the truth is temporary. The pain of hiding it becomes your life. Think about that. Temporary discomfort or permanent disconnection from who you are. And most people, without even realizing it, choose the second. They build entire lives around avoiding difficult truths. They smile when they're hurting, agree when they disagree, stay when they should leave, say yes when their soul is screaming no. And over time, that internal conflict grows louder because truth has a voice and it does not stay silent forever. It waits patiently,
relentlessly, until one day it demands to be heard. And when that day comes, it doesn't whisper anymore, it roars. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that tension in your chest when you knew you should say something but didn't? That tightness, that pressure? That's not weakness. That's your integrity knocking. That's your inner voice asking for alignment. Because deep down, you already know. You always knew. But knowing the truth and speaking it, those are two very different battles. One happens in your mind, the other in your life. And the second one is where most people break. Because speaking the truth requires something rare. Courage. Not the loud, heroic kind, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind that shows up when your voice shakes, when your hands tremble, when your heart races, but you speak anyway. That is courage. And here's the truth most people misunderstand. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important than fear. So, let me ask you again. What is more important than your fear? Your peace? Your dignity? Your self-respect? Because every time you choose silence over truth, you are making a trade, and it's never in your favor. You trade authenticity for approval. You trade clarity for comfort. You trade freedom for acceptance. But here's the problem.
Acceptance built on silence is not acceptance at all. It's performance, and performance is exhausting. You have to keep pretending, keep adjusting, keep hiding, until one day you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You become someone everyone else is comfortable with, but you are not. And that is a lonely place to be. Surrounded by people, yet disconnected from yourself. But what if I told you that the moment you begin to speak your truth, everything starts to change? Not instantly, not easily, but deeply. Because truth realigns your life. It filters your relationships. It strengthens your identity. Yes, it may cost you something. It may cost you approval. It may cost you comfort. It may even cost you people. But it will never cost you yourself. And that is a price worth paying. Let me take you somewhere for a moment. Imagine a version of you who no longer hides, who no longer suppresses what they feel, who speaks with honesty, even when it's difficult, not with anger, not with ego, but with clarity, with respect, with strength. That version of you is not fearless, but they are free. Because freedom is not about having no obstacles, it's about having nothing inside you that you're afraid to face. And truth is the doorway to that freedom. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, because speaking the truth doesn't just affect others, it confronts you. It forces you to look at your own contradictions,
your own excuses, your own avoidance. Because sometimes the hardest truth to speak is the one you've been hiding from yourself. Let me ask you something. What truth have you been avoiding? Is it about your career, your relationships, your habits, your potential? Because deep down, you know where you're not being honest. And that's where your growth is waiting. But growth does not come from comfort. It comes from confrontation, from honesty, from truth. And truth is not always gentle. Sometimes it disrupts. Sometimes it breaks things. But it only breaks what was built on illusion. And what remains is real, strong, unshakable. Now listen carefully. Most people stay stuck not because they lack talent, but because they lack honesty. They lie to themselves. I'll start tomorrow. It's not that bad. I'm fine where I am. But those are not truths. They are shields, protecting them from discomfort, but also from progress. Because you cannot change what you refuse to confront, and you cannot confront what you refuse to name. So the question becomes, are you willing to tell the truth, even when it's inconvenient, even when it challenges your identity, even when it demands change? Because truth is not just something you speak, it's something you live. And living in truth requires discipline. It requires awareness. It requires a willingness to stand alone if necessary. But here's the paradox. The moment you stand in your truth, you stop feeling alone because you are finally aligned with yourself.
And that alignment is powerful. It gives you clarity, direction, confidence, not because everything becomes easy, but because everything becomes honest, and honesty simplifies life. No more pretending, no more second-guessing, no more internal conflict, just clarity, and clarity is strength. But let me challenge you with something deeper. What if the reason you fear speaking the truth is not because of others, but because of what it will require from you? Because once you say it, you can't ignore it anymore. Once you acknowledge it, you have to act on it, and action is responsibility. So it's easier to stay silent, to delay, to avoid. But avoidance is not peace, it's pressure delayed. And eventually, that pressure builds until it forces a reaction. And by then, the cost is higher, the damage is deeper, the regret heavier. So why wait? Why not choose truth now? Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will be difficult, but it will also be liberating. Because every truth you speak removes a weight you've been carrying. Every honest word restores a piece of your power. And every moment of courage rebuilds your self-respect. And that's what this is really about. Not just speaking truth to others, but reclaiming your relationship with yourself. Because when you can trust your own voice, when you can stand by your own words, when you can face your own reality, you become unstoppable. Not because you control everything, but because you are no longer controlled by fear. And that is real power. Now let me bring you back to that moment we started with, that quiet whisper inside you, that truth you felt but didn't say. It's still there, waiting, and it's asking you one question. Are you ready now? Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. now. Are you ready to stop hiding, to stop shrinking, to stop negotiating your truth for temporary comfort? Because your life changes the moment you decide that your voice matters, that your truth matters, that you matter. And here's something most people don't realize. When you speak your truth, you give others permission to do the same. You create space for honesty, for real connection, for growth, because truth is contagious. But so is silence, and the world does not need more silence.
It needs more people who are willing to stand in their truth, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because that's where change begins. Not in comfort, but in courage. Not in agreement, but in honesty. And not in silence, but in truth. So the next time you feel that hesitation, that fear, that voice telling you to stay quiet, pause and ask yourself, what is this silence costing me? Because the answer to that question might change everything. And when you feel your voice shaking, when your heart is racing, when the moment feels heavy, speak anyway. Not perfectly, not aggressively, but honestly. Because truth does not require perfection. It requires presence. It requires courage. It requires you. And the more you practice it, the stronger it becomes, the clearer it becomes, the more natural it becomes, until one day it is no longer something you struggle with. It is who you are. A person who speaks with integrity, lives with clarity, and stands with courage. And that kind of person cannot be easily shaken, because they are rooted in something deeper than approval. They are rooted in truth. So here's where it all comes together. Your struggle, your hesitation, your fear, it was never a sign to stay silent. It was a signal that something important was at stake. Your voice, your identity, your freedom. And now you have a choice. Continue living in quiet discomfort or step into uncomfortable truth and grow. Because on the other side of truth is a life that feels lighter, clearer, more aligned, more real. And that life is waiting for you. So I'll leave you with this, not as a command, but as a question. What truth have you been holding back that is ready to set you free? And more importantly, what are you ready to lose so you can finally keep yourself?